Well, I wanted to talk about the difference between Canada and the United States. A lot of people have various opinions about it, but what I believe is there is no difference. There's small things here and there, some benefits in the United States, some benefits in the Canada and all that. But really, a few hundred years ago, we described the First Nations, the Native Americans, as just tribes. It wasn't really a country, it was just a whole pile of tribes in certain areas. And the thing is, we're not much different today. In fact, we're not. Sure, we have concrete walls and barbed wire and guards, border guards at certain spots, but we're just animals. That's all we are. There's groups of animals in different places, and they're kept there through various constructs, the economy, and quality of life, their ability to move there, whether they were born there or whatever. The difference between America and Canada is actually a lot less than you would think. Because there isn't actually a whole lot that separates us. There's bureaucratic red tape, there's politics, there's economic ties, and there's allocation of resources. Some people go, well, Canada won the War of 1812 and burnt down the White House, which is true, but they basically just had a big bonfire. They just, some people from Europe who were on the northern side of the continent said, yeah, let's go down to Washington and burn down that White House and have a big party. And that's basically what it was. It was, Europeans burning down the house of another set of Europeans. This idea that we're now countries. We're not really. We're just under, subliminal mind control. If the United States wanted to come up here to Canada, other than the things that separate us, as I mentioned, red tape, political, economic, allocation of resources, other reasons, and the distribution of populaces, because it's my general consensus that the global elite want to keep Canada's population relatively low, which would be smart because a lot of the fresh water is actually more or less in Canada. There's some in the United States, but the United States gets very, very dry in a lot of places. And Canada, basically, when America needs water, they come to us. And we give it to them. Depending, look, I'm hypothesizing. There's no way you can learn this stuff on the internet, except from somebody who happens to be on the internet who's not going to tell you anything. There's a lot of people who do know stuff and they will not tell for various reasons, which I don't understand. I don't get it. But I know that Canada has a lot of economic ties with the United States. A lot of our produce comes from there. That's a concept that a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand why vegetables come from the United States. Why don't we grow them here in Canada? Why is it more local? And there are different reasons for that. There's lots and lots of reasons. Different soil quality, different population hubs that are designed to create the produce, to grow it, available living space, all these, there's so many reasons why. And, as long as it's food on the table, I don't see why people should particularly care where it comes from. I guess you don't want to waste the gasoline, and add to global climate pollution by having it shipped in from somewhere else, but it's coming in on such a massive scale that emissions are relatively low considering. Yeah, as I said, if the United States and Canada had a hypothetical war like in South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, the war would be over kind of quick because the Canadian Armed Forces is much smaller than the United States. But it's a mutual beneficial advantage to have this illusion that they're two separate countries. And when it really boils down to it, if a serious decision has to be made, it's made by somebody who can walk across the border as many times as they want and make any kind of decision they want and have the business ties and the business power and the political power to do what they want to do. As I mentioned in previous videos about Freemasonry and things like that, there's contradiction within these groups. So there isn't one single person who can do whatever he wants. Not Justin Trudeau, not Barack Obama, not Donald Trump if he wins, although I'd like him to win. Certainly not Hillary Clinton. There isn't one single person who can do that. And the reason I'm saying Canada and America are only different in writing and on a map, and I'm not saying the same thing about Mexico, is because Mexico is Mexico. Their ancestors are Spanish. They're different from us. Although we're allies with them, we don't entirely get along with them that well, really. I mean, let's face facts, the Latinos and the Mexicans, they don't really like white people. It's just a fact. It's not racist to point it out. It's just the truth. I mean, there are a lot of decent ones. Yeah, it's true. There are. I'm not going to say there isn't. I'm not going to say we couldn't all try and get along. But, the separation has to be there. That's why I'm in support of Donald Trump. Now, a lot of people go, oh, that's a baby's answer to put up a wall. They can just, sneak into the country anyway through commercial vehicles and things like that, and there are other ways too. But that's the simple answer. That's what Donald Trump's talking about. That's what Hillary Clinton talks about whenever she talks about anything. It's the simple answers. They get into the complexity of them later. What Donald Trump's really saying by building a wall is he wants more border guards. He wants a stronger the police force and the border guards to have more power on the Mexican side. He wants to let fewer of them in than as of currently. He wants to stop the advance of the Mexicans entering what used to be Mexico years and years and years ago, a long time ago, ancient history. Like when Donald Trump makes his simplistic speeches about building a wall, he's saying a lot more than people want to believe. They just want to have an initial response to what he said, and they want to go, oh, he's an idiot. All he wants to do is build a bridge or a wall to stop people from coming in. Well, a 3-year-old could have thought of that. But he's obviously not going to give up the game that easy. He's got other ideas in mind. So anyway, that's the Mexicans are descendants of the Spanish. They speak a different language. They look different. They act different. We are allies with them, but we want them to stay in Mexico. And we don't want an influx of them coming here because Mexico, to be honest with you, they got the short end of the stick when we came here. They're in an extremely hot environment. Their water's subpar, dirty, disgusting. They're forced to work for pennies on the dollar. Now, things are cheaper down there, of course. They get their perks, but overall, we kind of gave them the raw deal. And us up in Canada got the best deal, and it trickled down. Canada got the best deal, then the Americans got the second best deal, and then the Mexicans got the third best deal of the European settlers that came here. The European settlers that came in South America, that's a different story. They got their own thing going on there, and they got different ideas, and we don't entirely get along with them all the time, or most of the time. And that's a whole other animal that I don't know much about, and I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about it. And I'll leave that part out. Yeah, Canada and the United States on paper will always be separate countries. It'll never be this manifest destiny that was talked about by the Americans at one point in history. It's the country. It's not they're not two separate countries. They're controlled by the Western global elite. To a lesser extent, England and France have a pretty big say in what goes on North American politics, but they're kind of like the whiny parents that we kind of sort of listen to, but not really. Yeah, we have our squabbles with the United States, like that pipeline that Obama refused to build. Like the story kind of just dried up. So I mean, we have our petty, small-time conflicts, but I'm sure there's people north of the border that didn't want that pipeline built either, for their own reasons. And it's not just America versus U.S. on that. There's a whole lot of things going on. There are people with their hands in both cookie jars. Your average citizen, of course, usually only has their hand in one cookie jar. Me, I'm a Canadian, so I have my hand in the Canadian cookie jar. I am a Donald Trump supporter. I hope he gets in. I would vote for him if I could. But I can't. Well, unless I married an American chick. Yeah, then I think I could. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind. But yeah. These countries, you set up your minions to guard the border and set in laws in specialized areas as a way of having almost like an invisible fence. It keeps people hemmed in because of social constructs, as I said. Mostly money, healthcare, housing, all kinds of things that keep people exactly where they are. Like, it's funny, you don't hear too often of, let's say, someone from Texas moving to New York. I mean, it would be such a culture clash for that to happen. But you get people coming from Ottawa or Quebec to Vancouver all the time, and vice versa. I mean, Canada is if you live in Canada, you may just pick up your stuff and go move somewhere else in Canada at any time. Well, not north of Canada, it's too cold up there, but in the major cities, anyway, that's a common occurrence. Whereas in the United States, they're not far off from where the First Nations were, as far as just being ethnic tribal groups that are specialized in their area, and it's almost like it's a self-contained little country of its own. because different states have different laws and they look the other way on certain things and they have different beliefs. There's the evangelicals in southern United States. Up north, they're a little more conservative. I think, anyway. I've only been in the United States once, and I was like 9 years old. So, listen to me if you want to. If you find me annoying or something like that, then change the channel. That's fine. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Well, maybe a little. Well, anyway. Yeah. Canada and the US, basically the same thing. It's all little differences, that's all. It's all superficial. It's beyond the average person's comprehension. Anyway, not gonna pretend I comprehend it, but I gave it my piece on it. Anyway, talk to you guys later. See ya.